In the quiet corridors of our old school library, a sense of serenity belied the darkness that was about to unfold. It all began one crisp autumn afternoon when I, along with a group of friends, stumbled upon an old, dust-covered diary wedged between two musty volumes. Its leather cover was cracked, and the pages were yellowed, giving it an air of ancient mystery. The diary's presence seemed inconspicuous, but a foreboding sense accompanied our discovery. As curiosity got the better of us, we opened the diary, revealing pages filled with faded, elegant handwriting. The entries were cryptic and disjointed, but they hinted at a world beyond our understanding. Despite the unsettling feeling it gave us, we were intrigued and decided to keep it. It seemed like an innocent piece of history, a relic from the past that had somehow found its way into our hands. Days turned into weeks, and our fascination with the diary grew. Each of us took turns reading its eerie passages, trying to decipher the cryptic messages. However, our initial excitement turned into unease when a disturbing pattern emerged. One by one, our friends who had written in it began to disappear. Their absences were shrouded in mystery, with no trace left behind except for the diary's ominous presence. The first to vanish was Emily, who had written a detailed entry about her fears and dreams. She was reported missing the next day, her disappearance a cold, unsettling reality. Then it was Mark, who had written about a nightmare involving shadowy figures. His absence was marked by a chilling silence that enveloped our group. Each disappearance added to our growing sense of dread. Determined to understand the connection between the diary and these vanishing acts, I took it upon myself to investigate further. I immersed myself in the diary's pages, searching for clues. The entries grew increasingly strange, filled with obscure symbols and warnings. It became evident that the diary was not merely a collection of musings. It was a cursed artifact with a sinister purpose. My investigation led me to the library's old records and archives. There, I uncovered a series of unsettling reports and rumors about the diary's history. It had once belonged to a student who had mysteriously disappeared decades ago, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. The more I uncovered, the more I realized that the diary had a dark and malevolent history. We gathered what remained of our group and discussed the diary's curse. The atmosphere was tense, fraught with fear and uncertainty. The diary seemed to have a life of its own, as if it fed on our anxiety and fear. It had become a conduit for something malevolent, an entity that thrived on the suffering it caused. Our attempts to break the curse led us down various paths. We sought help from occult experts, delved into ancient rituals, and explored forgotten legends. Each attempt to rid ourselves of the diary only seemed to strengthen its hold on us. The cryptic entries grew more ominous, and the dark force behind the diary became increasingly aggressive. As our efforts to decipher the diary's mysteries continued, our group began to fracture. Fear and suspicion eroded our trust in one another. We started to see signs of the curse manifesting in our daily life's strange occurrences. Vivid nightmares and a pervasive sense of dread. The diary seemed to be orchestrating our downfall, exploiting our deepest fears and weaknesses. One night, we gathered for a final attempt to confront the malevolent entity within the diary. The library's atmosphere was suffused with an otherworldly chill, and the once familiar surroundings felt foreign and menacing. We followed the diary's final instructions, hoping to break the curse once and for all. It was a desperate act, a last-ditch effort to reclaim our lives from the clutches of darkness. The ritual was intense and harrowing. The library's lights flickered, and an oppressive silence fell over us as we performed the final rites. The diary's pages seemed to come alive, its symbols glowing with a malevolent light. It was a battle of wills, a struggle against an entity that had consumed so much of our lives. With a final incantation, the diary erupted in a blinding flash of light. The force within seemed to dissipate, leaving behind a profound silence. The diary was reduced to ashes, the pages turning to dust before our eyes. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the library returned to its ordinary state. We had faced our fears and emerged victorious, but the scars of our ordeal would always remain with us. In the years that followed, the library became a place of peace once more. It continued to serve its purpose as a repository of knowledge and history. Free from the malevolent influence of the diary, we moved on with our lives, carrying the memory of our struggle as a reminder of the darkness that can lie hidden in the most innocuous places. However, years later, while visiting the city where the library was located, I found myself inexplicably drawn back to the familiar, now renovated building. I wanted to see if the place had changed since the last time I had been there. As I walked through the new sections, the memories of that fateful period flooded back. I felt a strange compulsion to revisit the storage room where the diary had once been. The storage room, now a nondescript area filled with old furniture and discarded books, looked nothing like the library I remembered. The place was filled with the scent of dust and neglect. As I carefully examined the surroundings, I noticed a small, forgotten box tucked away in a corner. The box was covered in cobwebs, and its presence seemed oddly out of place among the clutter. With trembling hands, I opened the box. Inside, to my shock and horror, lay the diary. It was the same diary. The leather cover was worn and cracked, and the pages were yellowed with age. It seemed to have been forgotten, left behind in the midst of the library's transformation. The sight of it sent a shiver down my spine. I flipped through the pages, and my heart raced as I noticed that some of the entries were not blank but had begun to reappear. The once cryptic symbols and ominous warnings were back, as if the diary had been waiting for someone to discover it again. The familiar sense of dread returned, and I realized that the diary's curse had not been fully vanquished yet. It had merely lain dormant. Feeling a surge of both fear and determination, I decided that I had to act. I couldn't allow the diary to continue its malevolent influence. I gathered my old friends, each now leading different lives, but bound by our shared experience. We met at the library, the place where our nightmare had begun, and prepared for what might be the final confrontation. As we reconvened, we felt the weight of our past decisions and the lingering fear of facing the darkness again. The library, though changed, still seemed to hold an air of foreboding. We gathered in the storage room, now eerily familiar in its dusty solitude. We resolved to destroy the diary once and for all. We planned a ritual, combining the knowledge we had gained from our previous attempts with new insights we had uncovered. The atmosphere was tense as we followed the steps of the ritual, hoping to sever the diary's connection to the malevolent entity it had once harbored. As we completed the ritual, the diary began to writhe and pulsate as if it were alive. The pages fluttered wildly, and a low, menacing hum filled the room. The lights flickered, and a chilling wind swept through the storage area. We felt the presence of the dark force that had once sought to consume us, but we pressed on, determined to see the ritual through to the end. With a final incantation, the diary erupted in a blinding flash of light. The force within seemed to dissipate, leaving behind a profound silence. The diary was reduced to ashes, the pages turning to dust before our eyes. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the library returned to its ordinary state. We had faced our fears and emerged victorious, but the scars of our ordeal would always remain with us. In the end, the library's atmosphere seemed to lighten, and the shadows that had once lurked within its walls were gone. We had faced the darkness and survived, but the memory of our struggle would forever be a part of our shared history. The diary's legacy remained a chilling testament to the horrors that come lie hidden in the most innocuous places. The dark influence had been banished, but the experience had taught us to value the light and to confront our fears with courage.